Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 902, September 19th, 2019, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's get right to it. A lot to cover today. Some of you may have caught a few clips of Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz answering some questions in Congress. Now, he wasn't there to talk about the Comey thing or Spygate or anything like that. He was there for a completely different reason. Just a kind of a bureaucratic Q&A regarding special counsels, all of them. And that's why he was primarily there. But of course, certain Republicans took the opportunity to ask him about other things, such as Jordan and Meadows and Gates and others. And so we got some information from Huckleberry Horowitz about his most recent report on Comey and just some things in general. So here's a couple things that we learned. Huckleberry Horowitz, the custodian, whose job, by the way, is to clean up the messes, Huckleberry Horowitz has testified that he is in communication with John Durham. He is in communication with John Durham. He would not elaborate on that really, only to say that he is conducting his investigation. It's a separate investigation from Barr and Durham, but he said that he is in communication with Durham. And of course, I'm sure he is. I'm sure there's a lot of information going back and forth. I'm sure there's information that Durham is discovering that's probably found its way to Horowitz. And Horowitz is, of course, getting information that finds its way back to Durham, because it all is sort of being filtered through Attorney General Barr or the Deputy Attorney General Rosen. So it makes sense that this information will be finding its way between the two of them. And but he says he is in communication with John Durham, and that's important. It tells us something, because we know that Horowitz has made criminal referrals, and we know that what Horowitz is looking at, and we also know what Durham is looking at. And so an important part of what Durham needs is actually being performed by Horowitz, the looking into the FISA warrant and the dossier specifically. I'm sure that Durham's looking into that as well, but the fact that Horowitz has a huge staff, and so he can do some of the lifting, and I think that that's what's going on here, that they're using Horowitz to the extent that he can do things. He can only talk to people who are in the DOJ unless outside people want to volunteer to come and talk to him, but he can only, I guess you'd say, compel people within the Department of Justice to talk to him. People outside the Department of Justice, or even retired people outside the FBI, DOJ, cannot really be compelled to talk to the Horowitz. So I think that Barr is using both Horowitz and Durham. I think, again, because of the sensitive political nature of things, that Barr wants to use Horowitz to be the guy who breaks the bad news. Because he's an Obama appointee, he is viewed as being impartial and a fair dealer, calling balls and strikes. So he's got this credibility built in, and Barr knows that anything that he or Durham produce is likely going to be criticized from day one as being part of a political smear. They're going after Trump's enemies, and Barr is Trump's personal attorney general, his personal, attack dog, going after Trump's enemies. And so Barr knows this is coming. He's not stupid. So by using Horowitz, he can deflect a lot of the political blowback that he knows is surely coming. So I think Barr is probably handling this the way he probably should. It's probably what I would do as well. You have to consider, in Washington, D.C., you have to consider the political consequences, the political gamemanship, and just the general political environment that you're in, and you have to know that it's going to be used against you. So I think it's a smart move by Barr, and I think it'll turn out to be, I think, a very strong point of defense for him, and he's surely going to need it. I can assure you of that. The Office of Inspector General also announced on Tuesday findings of misconduct by an FBI special agent in charge who failed to report an intimate relationship with a subordinate. The FBI agent retired during the OIG investigation. Now, I read this and they don't name the FBI agent in this particular case. My first thought is, oh, maybe it's Peter's been stroking us. But the more I read the letter again, and now I think it's probably not Peter's been stroking us, some other FBI agent. My guess is you have a lot of this type of thing going on over there at the FBI and DOJ, and you have this in a lot of government organizations, even private corporations. This is just something that happens. So again, the Office of Inspector General announcing on Tuesday findings of misconduct by an FBI special agent in charge who failed to report on an intimate relationship with a subordinate. The FBI agent retired during the OIG investigation. And then he goes on to say in the letter, writes an entire paragraph of all the negative consequences that resulted, including low morale, setting a poor example, and various other things. And I think, I didn't write it down here, but I do think that there is a criminal referral in this case as well. Well, it looks like the demo commies are going to hold a vote to censor Senator Kirsten Sinema. Kirsten Sinema. She's a little nutty, and she's, of course, from Arizona. And they're going to censor her for not opposing Trump on everything he does. And, in fact, the very quote from one of the people leading this is that, quote, voting habits were too friendly to the president. Now, she comes from a state, as a senator from Arizona, she comes from a state where she can't just 100% vote anti-Trump all the time. She'll be a one-term senator. But the Democommies really don't care because they can't see past their hatred right now. They're not even thinking in logical terms, or they wouldn't be doing a lot of the things that they're doing. They clearly cannot control themselves. They have Trump anxiety disorder or Trump derangement syndrome or something that does not allow them to exercise common sense and rationality. And that's why they're making this move. Now, she still votes somewhere around 80% against the president's agenda, but keep in mind what we learned right after the midterm elections was that right after the midterm elections, there was essentially a pact between Democrats who had then just taken control of the House. There was a pact between Democrats that they would not give Trump any victories at all, that they would fight and block him on everything. And this would include anything that the Congress was trying to get passed that would in any way, shape, or form benefit the president or the Republican Party. So this has been their strategy since day one. And then, of course, the committee heads signed their own private pact of how they were going to work together to drive Trump out of office. So we've known this since just days after the midterm elections, that this is what they were going to do. And it looks like if you're one of those Democrats who were part of this pact and then you kind of back off on it, walk it back, or you don't completely 100% follow in line, they censor you. They censor you. So they're going after their own people. I mean, it's a divide and conquer. We already know that the same people who backed the Squad, the Four Horsewomen of the Apocalypse, the same group that backed them, which is that group that's headed up by Jink Ulger and some people like that, they are targeting, I hear the number somewhere around 150. They're targeting about 150 incumbents to do just exactly what they did with Omar and Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez. They're targeting these Democrats. So here you have, within the Democratic Party, coming up in a major election, you have a far left-wing part of the party attacking the so-called centrist people within the party in these primaries. And here you actually have them censoring sitting members, senator, in a state where it's kind of a Republican state. And so you have to wonder what their thinking is here. I mean, their strategy is completely, doesn't make sense. And we even had Pelosi in a press conference again just yesterday, asking a press conference, and she, by no stretch at all, in fact, she kind of went after Nadler a little bit. She didn't really go after Nadler. She just made it pretty clear that she isn't necessarily 100% on board with Nadler's hearings. And she even said, and if you want to, you can leak this. That's what she said. So she was wanting to send a not-so-subtle message to Nadler that she's not behind what he's doing. She's trying to hold all this together, but she just can't, because she no longer really controls where the energy is in the party, and she's just losing control. But it all means that if they continue, and I believe they will, I don't think they have much choice down the path they're going. They're looking at getting defeated in 2020 in a very big way. Not just losing the presidency to Trump, giving him a second term, but I mean, I think if they continue the way they're going, I think that they could very well lose the House that they just gained 2 years ago. I think they could easily lose the House if they continue in this way, because they're not trying to protect the seats that they won that gave them the control of Congress, of the House. That they're not protecting those seats. In fact, they're going after people who won seats, Democrats who won seats in red states or sort of purple states. They're going after them and targeting them and kind of forcing them into putting themselves in positions where they have to take positions that will make them, quite honestly, unelectable. They will not get reelected if they follow the hard party line. So the number one thing these people are worried about is holding their own seat. I mean, they put their own seat, their own personal situation above the party. And so, like Kirsten, she wants to get reelected. And if she takes the advice of the demo commies and the radical left wing of the party, she will not get reelected. She will be defeated. And she knows that. So I imagine this is the argument that she'll make. A lot of Democrats in swing states and red states, states where Trump won, are going to be making the same argument. And that's the argument. That's what they're going to say. Well, look, I could try to follow what you guys are telling me to do, but we're going to lose my seat. And then the Republicans are going to come back and take control of Congress. Now, my guess is the Democrats would retort to that by saying, no way, the country hates Trump, the country hates Republicans, they're going to vote for us. They believe their own BS, is basically what I'm saying. We'll see how that all works out. But yeah, there's no doubt that the Democratic Party is deeply, deeply divided, and the Republican Party is 94% of Republicans support Trump. So while there's still a few anti-Trumpers out there, they have literally no impact whatsoever. The Republican Party, for the most part, is about as united as I have seen them in a very long time. Well, let's go ahead and do the daily Biden Gaff update. The daily Biden Gaff update. Okay, so Biden, Crazy Joe, is being asked by a reporter if he will release his medical records. Biden asked him if he wanted to wrestle. Hey, you want to wrestle? No, I just want your medical records. It's funny, Biden's like, 76? And he wants to fight everybody. I mean, when you're 76, your bones get kind of brittle. I wouldn't be starting fights when I'm 76. I mean, as a reporter, if I was a reporter, I said, well, come to think of it, I was a wrestler in high school, and I'm half your age. Yeah, let's go ahead and throw down. Let's see, there's some grass. There's a little grassy spot over there. Yeah, let's go over there and throw down. How about if I pin you, you got to give up your medical records? That's what I would have said. I would have taken him up on it. Yeah, I do want to wrestle. Right now. Let's go at it. Okay, so, and I'm hoping that somebody at some point does call Crazy Joe on one of these crazy things he says. Now, that was just kind of silly and kind of funny and silly, but this is actually goes more to the point of why it's pretty obvious that Biden is losing his scruples, you might say. So he's making a speech, and he says in the speech, he's saying that he would propose a child tax credit that will put 720 million women back in the workforce. 720 million women back in the workforce. Now, maybe the media will call him on this. I mean, they've been given the order to take him out, so I imagine they will. Now they should report on all of this stuff. You'll certainly hear media pundits tomorrow. There'll be stories about this. You can read all about it. Well, they'll be today for you. It's tomorrow for me. But yeah, it will be pointed out pretty clearly that, again, it's just another Biden gaffe. 720 million women. Well, considering there's only a little more than 300 million people in the entire country, you're not going to find 720 million women back in the workforce when you don't have anywhere near that number. Again, we only have about a little over 300 million people in the country. So, yeah, he will never get 720 million women back in the workforce. It's just another Biden gaffe, but that's a big one. I mean, most people know there's about 300 million people in the country. And if you're a politician and you're trying to explain a policy, especially something like this, a tax credit and this type of thing, these are not facts and figures you want to get wrong. And if you do, you catch yourself very quickly and you correct it. But he's not capable. I mean, this stuff comes out of his mouth. I don't think his mind is processing what's coming out of his mouth. I really don't. That's what it looks like to me. And that shows that his mental faculties are failing him. And it's obvious. It was obvious to me 3 years ago. That's why when he was Obama's VP, they didn't let him go out and talk. And when they did, they made him read. They never let Biden go out there and freelance. Ever. Well, it looks like Ed Buck has been arrested. Now, we've talked about him 2 or 3 times. Most of you are familiar with him. He's this crazy lunatic nut job out in California. He is a big-time supporter, donor, and friend of the rotten Reverend Clinton, and also a big donor to the DNC. He goes out and raises money for the Democratic Party. He raised a lot of money for the rotten Reverend. There's a couple of pictures of the two together. He's a real creep, by the way. Most of you know that. And so it looks like a third man has overdosed in his apartment. But the last 2 guys who overdosed in his apartment died. This one did not. He is alive. So it looks like Ed Buck, they're now saying that his fetish is injecting young black men with methamphetamine. And he is being charged with operating a meth house and providing meth. This guy is sick, man. This guy is sick. And why should it surprise us? I mean, is it just me, or have many of you noticed it? Is everyone that's associated with the rotten Reverend Clinton or Slick Willie some kind of pervert or freak or sexual spastic or something? I mean, all their friends was Weinstein or this Steen or that Steen or Epstein or everyone that these people seem to know is some sort of a pervert, some sort of a creep. My God, the company they keep. Like my dad used to say, birds of a feather flock together. John Solomon is leaving the Hill. Thank God. The only reason I go to the Hill is to read John Solomon. There's not a single other so-called reporter on that site that I can bear, that I can even tolerate. It's all anti-Trump stuff. And a lot of, especially on economics, always predicting, the trade war is going to take down the economy. All the economy is going into recession. I mean, the Hill is horrible. But John Solomon writes for the Hill. Up until this point he has, and that's probably why he's getting out of there. He's sick of it. He's the only fair, honest, decent journalist on the entire site. So John Solomon's leaving the Hill. He is starting his own media outlet. Very good. Very good. And I bet he does very well. I bet he will do very well. So yes, we'll all be supporting John Solomon every way that we can. When he gets his new organization up, I will be subbing to it, and I will be visiting that site every day. We need to definitely support John Solomon 100%. Probably the best real reporter that we have in the country today, in my opinion. Hey, good news. It looks like the massage therapist who sued Kevin Spacey for sexual assault has died. That's right. The massage therapist who sued Kevin Spacey for sexual assault has died right in the damn middle of the court hearings. Huh? How about that? Well, so that of course Kevin Spacey, once his attorneys found out that the guy who's suing them has died, they sent a letter to the court letting them know. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the case ends. It probably will, but technically, legally, if you're in the middle of a court proceeding like this, a criminal or civil proceeding, and a person dies who's bringing the suit, that can still continue. And there's a way that that's done. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you how it's done, but I know it can be done. So it doesn't necessarily mean 100% that Kevin Spacey, that this case will be dropped. But and if it's a criminal case, it probably would not be. If it's a civil case, it probably will be dropped. But still, you have to wonder. I mean, see, this is why it's good to be really good friends, close friends, personal friends of the Clintons. Now, here's Kevin Spacey. He's got this little problem, this little legal problem. Actually, he's got 18 different people accusing him of this type of thing. I don't know if they can rub out all 18, but they can work on it. But anyway, this is the benefit of being associated with the Clintons. Here you are being sued by somebody, you're a friend of the Clintons, and that person just happens to die. Now, I don't know if we can technically add this to the Clinton body count yet, but it should be under consideration. Maybe I'll do a poll. So we have a little bit more on the Huckleberry Horowitz testimony, in addition to what we talked about earlier. So Huckleberry Horowitz said that both Comey and McCabe were referred for the same overarching issues relating to the leaking of FBI material to the media. So Horowitz is saying, and this is a question that was asked to him by a Republican, and he's saying that both the criminal referrals of Comey and McCabe are essentially referring to or relating to the leaking of FBI material to the media. But Horowitz then said, here's where you got to listen very carefully. Horowitz also said that there is more evidence toward the referral of McCabe than currently exist publicly. Both Comey and McCabe were criminally referred for the same overarching issues relating to the leaking of FBI material to the media, and also there is more evidence toward the referral of McCabe than currently exist publicly. What's he telling us? He's saying, well, yeah, criminal referrals on Comey and McCabe for the leaking of information, official FBI information, could have been classified, may not classified. Still, you're not allowed to leak information. Certainly what McCabe did was leak information about an investigation. The Clinton Foundation investigation. But Horowitz is saying that in the criminal referral of Andrew McCabe, that there is other evidence that we currently do not know in the public domain. So here we are watching this indictment of McCabe, and everyone's focused on, it's because of specifically what lying to the FBI and the DOJ and lying about leaking this information about an official FBI investigation. But what Horowitz is saying here is that it's not just that there is other things that are related to that referral, that criminal referral against McCabe, that we don't know about. So I don't know if this is the FISA stuff, which Horowitz also understands because he's investigating that as well, or just finished his investigation. It could be something he's learned from Durham. It could be a combination of things. So this referral, this criminal referral of Andy McCabe, it looks like we're going to find out that it's not just going to be a criminal referral for one thing or 3 counts of lying or whatever. It looks like it's going to involve other things other than just the lying or leaking. It looks like there's other things involved here. And it's also, keep in mind, it's also possible that they could do an indictment of McCabe. He could be indicted right now, but they could have sealed that indictment. They could have made the indictment and sealed it, and they're holding it because they have other things that they're waiting for. But they want to go ahead and get this indictment down right now. Okay, we got him for this, and this. Let's indict him on this. But there's still more stuff out there. So let's go ahead and get this indictment. Let's seal it. Let's hold it until, and they can hold a sealed indictment for years. There might probably some time limit on it, but, you see a lot of times where indictments have been held for, a year. So it's also possible we could see a sealed indictment, which means we wouldn't see McCabe indicted immediately, would lead a lot of people to believe he's not going to be indicted or that something else has happened. But I believe if we still don't learn about him being indicted in the next week or two, it's either because A, he's cut a deal, or B, because they have sealed his indictment and are holding it until they finish other investigations, and they'll release those indictments too. So Jim Jordan asked Horowitz about the small group debriefing by Comey after the Trump Tower meeting, just to make sure that he understood correctly exactly what that was all about. And it was pretty cool to watch Horowitz listen to Jordan's saying. So let me get this straight. Trump goes up and, or Comey goes up and tells Trump, supposed to be a debriefing, he goes up and tells Trump he's not under investigation, while the whole time Comey is actually there as part of the counterintelligence operation to try to get something that he can use as evidence against Trump. Then he goes out into his FBI vehicle, he gets on his computer, and he starts typing out his notes immediately, and then he goes to a FBI local branch, and he has a teleconference, and he's communicating with the small group, which Jordan is identifying as James Baker, Jim Rybicki, McCabe, Strzok, Page, and others. And of course, he says this to Horowitz, and then Horowitz basically says, "Yeah, well, yeah, that's pretty much." And then Jordan says, "Well, that doesn't sound like a debriefing, an intelligence briefing. That sounds like, kind of like a setup or something. That sounds like it's something else." And Horowitz is like, "Yeah, that's the way we took it." That's exactly right. And that's probably why Horowitz, just as he said earlier in his testimony yesterday, he said that's why we made a criminal referral to Comey. This was not just an innocent situation here going on. He was actively trying to set a trap for the president. He was lying to the president. He was laying a trap for the president. He was involved in all this going around the president, and he wasn't, he was lying to the president, which you're not allowed to do. Not allowed to do that. So anyway, that was pretty interesting to see Horowitz. I mean, I was surprised, to be quite honest with you, because there was a couple Republicans asked him similar type questions to clarify about his report. And they put the spin on it that we all put on it and look at it the same way we look at it. And Horowitz pretty much said, yeah, that's the way we saw it. It was an attempt to set him up. It was an attempt to set a trap. Yeah, he did exactly as you say. Yep, that's the way we looked at it. So that was pretty interesting to see Horowitz being that direct. He didn't. I mean, he could have bailed on it. He could have said, "Well, we're not going to give our opinions. We just put out the report, and the facts are there, and you can take from the facts what you wish." I mean, he could have answered those questions in a much different way. He didn't do it. He didn't dodge it at all. He said, "Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we all thought." By the way, I should want to mention, there was an article in the Epic Times. I forget which one of the writers it was, but he writes in this article that we may want to prepare ourselves for the fact that the IG report may not be released for months and months and months, because all that time it's going to take to go through declassification and all this sort of things, kind of trying to dampen our hopes that we're going to get the IG report in the next 2 or 3 weeks, which is what everybody's predicting. So yeah, it's a pretty decent article, and they give a couple examples of why it might take a very long time. Obviously, there's 1 million pages of documents it was looked at, 100 witnesses. It's probably a 500-page report. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, there's certainly an argument could be made that it certainly could take longer. But I think in this particular case, I think there are other things at play, and also I think Attorney General Barr. I just my personal gut feeling. I don't know this, but it's my personal gut feeling that Barr does not want to come out with the findings of Durham's investigation, or have Durham come out with the findings of his investigation right in the middle of the general election. My thoughts is that Barr would like to get this stuff out before the general election starts, because it could have an impact on the Democrats' nominee, Joe Biden, because he was involved. He was in the meeting. We know he was in the meeting that last day in the Oval Office where they had the briefing where they talked about how they were going to continue the Spygate thing. But so Biden's read into a lot of this. He knows about a lot of this. He also has some dealings with Ukraine, which was key in Spygate. He has some dealings with China that are questionable. He has some other things going on. So it's possible that Biden could get caught up in this, or certainly be questioned. It could be used. And I think that would look really political at that point. And I think that Barr doesn't want that to happen. I think it's my best guess is that Barr would like to have the entire investigation, Durham's investigation, out, and if there are going to be any indictments, and have all that done before we enter into the beginning of the general election. That's just my gut feeling. I know that's certainly what I would want to do. So I don't think there'll be a lot of feet dragging. I think they'll be pushing pretty hard. But probably just as important is the declassification and release of the declassification. I mean, if they'll just declassify these records, good journalists who are following this story, I mean, and people like myself and other YouTubers, we'll take care of making sure people know what happened. I think it's probably more important maybe right now to get that information out. But I do think that I don't think Barr is going to drag his feet on this. I know it takes time to go through all this declassification and stuff, but I don't think Barr is dragging his feet on it. I do think he's pushing and going as hard as he can. So, anyway, you can take that story for what it's worth. I think there's something to it, but I wouldn't get totally depressed. If you're one of those people who read that story and you're really, really depressed now, I wouldn't put too much into that. And another thing I should bring up at this point is, if the DOJ, if Barr and Durham and if these people, if they don't get with it and pretty quickly get things out there, if they play around too long, Sidney Powell is going to expose the Spygate cover-up. Because if you look at the 40 documents that she is requesting, if she gets those 40 documents, that will blow the entire Spygate thing wide open. Because so much of what she's wanting is tied directly to the origins of Spygate. She's wanting 302s on Downer. She's wanting 302s on Mifsud. She's wanting 302s on Halper. There's a lot of stuff there that she's asking for that if it comes out and it's what we think it is, that will blow the Spygate wide open. Barr and Durham will be basically be like, oh, well, we might as well just release everything we got and go and start indicting people, because Sidney Powell has just gotten this judge, in her case, to order the release of all these documents, and that's going to blow this thing wide open. So, like I say, if they don't hurry up, Sidney Powell's going to beat them to it. And she's got a pretty agreeable judge in that case. But, there's another story came out yesterday, McCabe on CNN, and he's saying on CNN that he absolutely, under no circumstances, is he going to take a plea deal. He says he will not take a plea deal. Now, I don't believe that at all. When I look at Andy McCabe, he looks like the type of guy to me who will take a plea deal. Now there's two thoughts here. Either A, he's being told, hey, your trial will be held in D.C., it's 99% hate Trump in D.C. You'll get a very friendly jury. They won't convict. That's a hell of a risk to take. It's a hell of a risk to take. I think if they drop heavy charges on Andy McCabe, he will cut a deal. If he has competent attorneys, they'll tell him he should cut a deal. So I don't know if he's just saying this to keep people from thinking he's going to turn over on them so that they don't turn on him. Maybe this is just a defensive mechanism like that. I don't really know, but I don't buy it when he says he will not take a plea deal. I don't buy that. I think he will take a plea deal. I think most of these people will take plea deals. I would say there'll probably be very, very few of these cases that will go to criminal trial. I would say 90% of them or more will cop plea deals. Finally, just want to mention one last thing. I'm watching a couple more of those clips of the hearings yesterday. I'm watching Nadler's opening statement. It just dawned on me that, Nadler, the Penguin, Jerry Nadler, missed his calling. Jerry Nadler should have went to Hollywood and became an actor. He would be the most fantastic slapstick comedy straight man you could ever have. Because watching him, it's literally like watching a really good slapstick comedian. A straight playing slapstick comedian. He would be great, like in a slapstick comedy, because that's what he is. He's a clown. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.